it's Jenny at the Orcas Public Library again, and I have another story for you. This one is in honor of all those people that are running for offices now, whether it's at the running for their school office or they're running for something else they believe in. This one, I'll read to you and see if you like it too. This one's called Grace for President, and it's written by Kelly Dipucchio, and it's illustrated by LeUyen Pham. Let's see if you like it too. I'm going to open the flap here because there's a lot going on. Can you guess which one's Grace? And this book is published by Disney and Hyperion Books, and we are very happy to be able to read it and thank them for letting us do it in quarantine. Let's start the book. One Monday morning in September, Mrs. Barrington rolled out a big poster with all the president's pictures on it. Grace Campbell could not believe her eyes. Where are the girls? That's a very good question, Mrs. Barrington said. The truth is, our country has never had a woman president. No girl president, ever? Grace asked. No, I'm afraid not, said Mrs. Barrington. Grace sat at her desk and stewed. No girls? Who'd ever heard of such a crazy idea? Finally, she raised her hand. Yes, Grace? I've been thinking it over, and I'd like to be president. Several students in the class laughed. Well, I think that's a star-spangled idea, Grace, said Mrs. Barrington. In fact, we can have our own election right here at Woodrow Wilson Elementary. The snickering in the room stopped, and Grace smiled. Would anyone else like to run for president? Mrs. Barrington asked the class. No one raised their hand. Becoming president was going to be easy, Grace thought. The next day, Mrs. Barrington made an announcement. In the name of democracy, I've invited Mr. Waller's class to join our election, and their class has nominated Thomas Cobb to be their presidential candidate. Grace's heart sank. Thomas was the school's spelling bee champion. His experiments always won, took a blue ribbon at the science fair, and he was captain of the soccer team. Becoming president wasn't going to be so easy after all, Grace thought. The teachers put the names of all 50 states and the District of Columbia into a hat, and everyone except for Grace and Thomas got to choose a state. I'm Texas, said Anthony. I'm New Hampshire, said Rose. I'm Michigan, said Robbie. What does the number 16 mean? Each state is assigned a number of electoral votes, and the number is determined by how many people live in the state, said Mrs. Barrington. Each of you will be a representative for your state. Altogether, our country has 538 electoral votes, Mr. Waller explained, and on election day, the candidate who receives 270 electoral votes or more wins the election. Why 270, said Rose. That's more than half of all the electoral votes, Mr. Waller said. Becoming president really wasn't going to be so easy, Grace thought. Grace came up with the campaign slogan, Make history, vote Grace Campbell for president. And Thomas came up with his own campaign slogan, Vote for Thomas Cobb, the best man for the job. Grace listened to what issues were important to the students, and she made a list of campaign promises. A peaceful school, no bullies. A cleaner school, no littering. Better hot lunches, no more fish stick tacos. Thomas made up his own list of promises. Free tutoring, free soccer lessons, fish stick tacos every week. Would you want fish stick tacos every week? I might like them, actually. I don't know. Grade made campaign posters and buttons. Thomas made posters and buttons too. Whew, who's going to win? Each week, the teacher set aside time for the candidates to meet with their constituents. Polls were taken. Voters were making their choices. Grace continued to campaign, and at recess she made speeches, and during lunch she handed out free cupcakes. Yum. And after school, she held rallies. Meanwhile, Thomas wasn't worried. He had clearly calculated that the boys held slightly more electoral votes than the girls. And at recess, Thomas studied his spelling words. And during lunch, he worked on his latest science experiment. And after school, he played soccer. Even before the elections, Grace made good on her promises. She joined the safety squad. She organized a school beautification committee, and she volunteered her time in the school cafeteria. Whew, she looks busy. And in early November, Woodrow Wilson Elementary hosted a special Election Day assembly. Grace and Thomas took their places on stage at the school as the school band began to play. Henry was the first representative to approach the microphone. The Yellowhammer state of Alabama cast its 11 electoral votes for Thomas Cobb. And Fletcher said, the last frontier state of Alaska casts its 3 electoral votes for the best man for the job, Thomas Cobb. And Hannah called out, the Grand Canyon state of Arizona cast its 11 electoral votes for Grace Campbell. And so it went. State after state after state cast their electoral votes, and the scoreboard in the gymnasium kept track of the totals. The voting demonstration was quickly coming to an end. Clara approached the podium. The Badger state of Wisconsin cast its 10 votes for my best friend, Grace Campbell. Grace looked at the scoreboard. Thomas had 268 electoral votes. She had 267. There was only one state still unaccounted for. Wyoming. Thomas grinned. Grace felt sick. Sam walked up to the microphone. He looked at Thomas. He looked at Grace. He looked down at Grace's handmade flag. Sam didn't say a word. What are you waiting for? Thomas whispered. The band stopped playing. All eyes were on Wyoming, and finally Sam cleared his throat. The equality state of Wyoming casts its 3 electoral votes for Grace Campbell. And the gymnasium erupted in loud cheers and a few boos. Mrs. Barrington approached the podium. With 270 electoral votes, the winner is Grace Campbell. And Thomas looked stunned. Grace hugged Sam. Why did you do it? She asked. Sam handed Grace his flag. Because, he said. I thought you were the best person for the job. The following week, students in Mrs. Barrington's class were preparing for their career day presentations. Grace volunteered to go first. She stood at the front of the room and she glanced at the poster still hanging on the wall. My name is Grace Campbell, and when I grow up, I'm going to be the President of the United States. This time, everyone believed that she would. Yes. What do you think? Maybe she will be. Who knows? And maybe someday she'll be on Mount Rushmore. Or maybe one of you guys might be. Who knows? Maybe. Just don't know. You have to be brave, I think, just to put your name in and try to campaign. We can use a lot of other voices out there. Definitely. I have one more story. It's a bit of a long one, but it's on the same topic, and I thought I would just read it. Let's see if you like it. This one's called Sofia Valdez, Future Prez by Andrea Beaty, illustrated by David Roberts. Same topic, I think. And this book is published by Abrams, Books for Young Readers from New York, and we thank them for letting us read it here in quarantine. And I have all these books at the library too. If you want to check them out and maybe read them again, I'll try it this time. Let's go ahead. There we are. Sofia was a baby who got things done, helping her family before she turned 1. She and Abuelo went out every week to help elderly friends around Blue River Creek who couldn't get out and about on their own and with no place to gather were stuck home alone. Raking the leaves and taking pets for a walk or just dropping by for a treat and a talk. Sofia Valdez did as much as she could for her family and friends and her whole neighborhood. A dreamer, a doer, a real-life go-getter. Most people like good, but Sofia liked better. Each morning, Abuelo walked Sophie to class. They walked home again along Blue River Pass, making plans and munching cookies. Abuelo and girl, except for that Tuesday when Pop saw the squirrel. With a howl, Pup took off, racing all through the town, over and under, beneath and around. Sofia scrambled to try to keep up with the hollering man and the bellowing pup. That's a bit of a hard one to read that. Phew. Up the squirrel ran to the top of the hill, made of leftover junk for the local landfill. They reached the tip-top of the mountain of trash, which jiggled and broke with an ear-splitting crash. Down they all tumbled and hit with a thud on a moldy old pumpkin surrounded by mud. Ouch, cried Abuela. He struggled to stand. A dangerous mess, he said, grasping her hand. The next day, Sofia walked to school solo, but it wasn't the same without her abuelo. This is not right, declared young Sofia, who glared at Mount Trashmore and got an idea. The very next morning at dawn, she planted a sign at the front of the lawn. She stood back and smiled, and Pup gave a bark. Get rid of Mount Trashmore. Let's build a new park. Each of her neighbors had something to say about benches and fountains and places to play, meeting spots, gardens, a basket for bees, a rubber duck pond, and a kiosk for cheese. She drew every thought on her map of the park, which was perfectly perfect by a quarter till dark. She drifted to sleep in her soft, cozy bed. Then, bam, she woke up with a thought. When a thought smacked her head, her heart skipped a beat as she realized each one of her neighbors had said, "Let me know when it's done." They all thought Sofia could build it alone, but how could one girl do so much on her own? The weight of that thought made her tender heart ache as night thunder growled and she lay wide awake. Then dawn brought a storm and the gloomy sky wept, and the heartsick Sofia finally slept. Abuelo baked cookies when Sofia got up. He gave her a bagful and sneaked one to Pup. He blinked back a tear as he hugged his Sofia. "For courage," he whispered. "Te amo," mi vida. Sophia's knees wobbled. She felt weak inside. She looked at her ankle and quite nearly cried. And though she didn't feel brave or courageous at all, Sofia Valdez went to face City Hall. Whew. Can you even see her in that picture? She's so tiny compared to everything there. The mayor's office sent her to room 401, the Blue River Creek Department of Fun, which sent her downstairs to room 302, the office of duck ponds and cool things to do, to the office of monkeys, the department of cheese, the division of fountains and meetings and bees. Then down to the basement, so musty and cramped, where all the town's papers were sorted and stamped. And that's where the clerk said what no one else did. You can't build a new park. You're only a kid. The words smacked Sofia deep down in her heart. Her plan was kiboshed before it could start. I think, said Sofia, I think that law's wrong. But her second grade voice didn't sound very strong. The clerk said clearly, it cannot be done. Do you have any questions? Sofia said, one. If you were me and if I was you and he was your grandpa, what would you do? Well, said the clerk, and then she said nothing at all. She thought, and then she sent out a call to every employee throughout City Hall. The entire government of Blue River Creek crammed into the office to hear Sofia speak, but her words jumbled up and her cheeks turned bright red as a dozen emotions rushed into her head. Her heart beat so loudly she thought it would crack. The crowd leaned in closer. Sofia leaned back. Then her arm brushed the edge of the old cookie sack, and that was the moment when Sofia first knew being brave means doing the thing you must do. Though your heart cracks with fear, though you're just in grade 2. She took a deep breath, looked at the mayor in the eye, and though her knees wobbled, she held her head high. Sofia started talking, and she spelled out her plan and why it all mattered and how it began. And once she got rolling, she had lots to say about meeting spots and monkeys and places to play and other ideas for things they could do to help the town's elders and other folks too. She had thoughts on the library, thoughts on the zoo, and perhaps a way to combine the two, and she has lots of ideas. All right, cried the mayor. Go start a petition. If the town wants a new park, we'll form a commission. And so young Sofia got right to work, and with some help from her family and pup, and the clerk. Then others joined in, not all, but a few, like Miss Lily Greer and the kids in grade 2. There were hearings and surveys and taxes to figure, then bulldoze cranes and a blue bigger digger. They all built that park. That's how it got done. With the hard work off by and for everyone. But it began with the dream of one person, just one, who laced up her shoes and then led the way to help Blue River Creek get a new place to play. Now every evening till long after dark, the town comes together at Citizens Park. They all hold this truth to be self-evident, that Sofia Valdez could grow up to be president. Until then, Sofia, that real-life go-getter, helps Blue River Creek get better and better. is the Citizens Park. I like that one. That's a good one. So I think if Sophia or Grace were running, I think I'd vote for them. But you could vote who you wanted to. Just make sure that you support those people you care about. Yes, or go out there and lead yourself. You can do it. I know you can. And I believe one of you very well could be president. Yes. So with that, I'll leave it. It's been a long one, and I hope that you have a very good weekend. Find some time outside, and if you have time on Saturday, come join us 11:30 at the library. We're going to have an outdoor story time. Bye-bye.